Blessings and welcome to Still Whole Wellness YouTube channel where healing happens every day. I'm Dr. Lori and I'm so excited because I have a special guest with me today. I've been just elated to have met this young woman here. I have Mary Knight with me. Blessings, Mary. Thank you and welcome to you. So Mary is a retired social worker and in the foster care system.
Well,
And
actually, I did more in other areas of social work, but I can tell you more about that.
oh yes, please do. Um, so Mary, she's worked as a a respite uh, foster parent, which
Yeah.
I think is absolutely phenomenal. And she's going to tell us a little bit about that. Mary is also a filmmaker, and I've actually had the pleasure of being able to view one of her films, which was amazing. Mary's also an author, a published author. She has a really awesome uh, how would you categorize the Black Lives Matter? Is it what do you consider it an article
Essay?
or
As an
an
essay.
essay? An essay. Really inspiring essay that she wrote about the Black Lives Matter movement and her connection to that, which I just absolutely found phenomenal. So welcome, Mary. um, Mary's also a childhood sexual assault survivor, and so that is one of the reasons why she's with us today. She's going to talk to us about her experience with that, and she's going to also talk to us a little bit about her healing journey and the work that she's doing now. So, again, welcome, Mary. Can you go ahead and share with the viewers about your story?
Sure. Yeah. And I'll tell a little more about as a social worker. I was a social worker 23 years. I have a master's degree in social work. And
Hmm.
I placed over 100 kids in adoptive homes. I supervised adoption and a foster care worker at one point. I also did parenting time evaluations for disputed divorce custody cases. And I testified in court. I've been established as an expert in court over 100 times for child-related matters. Now what
Hmm.
I'm doing is a respite foster mom. My husband and I take care of foster kids when their full-time foster parents go on when they just need a break. And in the state of Washington, as in many states, foster parents get 2 nights off a month, and they usually
Hmm.
take it as a weekend. So we have the child come stay with us, and then we have the same child every month. So
Ah.
some of our kids really like coming, and one of them liked coming so much. Now he is back with his biological mom. There was
Hmm.
reunification in that case, and he told his mom, "I still want respite," and she didn't know what it was. But now that she's figured it out, he comes to see us once a month. We go pick him up at his mom's house and take care of him for the weekend. And then she gets, all parents need a
Some
break, so
time.
she gets a couple of nights
Absolutely.
off. Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's the thing we
I
really
had
enjoy.
never I had never heard about that
I
before you
hadn't
shared it.
either.
Yeah, before you shared it with me during the pre-interview, I had never heard of respite foster care,
Yeah.
and I think it is like genius because
Uh-huh.
of what you just said. I think all parents absolutely need a break. So I love that you are able to hold that space for people. Um, so tell us a little bit, Mary, about your story with regards
Yes.
to your childhood.
Yes. And I will start by saying I really have a good life now. And one of the things I really want to get across is that recovery is possible. It's possible to get well even after the most horrible childhood. And I did have one of the most horrible childhoods imaginable. Now, I don't compare with other people because someone may have been fondled once and that can really affect their life a lot.
Hmm.
So, anyone who has been abused in any way, I can relate to. I
Hmm.
was abused verbally, sexually, physically. And I was abused in ritualistic ways. So in well, it definitely was organized child abuse, because my parents were in used organizations as a way to, for instance, distribute child pornography. Produced child pornography and used me in it, used other children in it. And I think that they distributed this at Ku Klux Klan meetings. And so there is definitely a segment of that hate group that victimizes children. And I've heard that from other survivors too, who were victimized as children, whose parents were members of the Ku Klux Klan, and whose parents were victimized by the Ku Klux Klan. I've heard both. So my abuse, I recovered memories of my abuse at age 37. I didn't have continuous memory. That is something that happens with many survivors of all sorts of different trauma, including traumas from war. Vietnam vets were, there were many Vietnam vets who, after they came back, during an era where they were called baby killers, they didn't have the way to express, they didn't have the usual honor that is shown to a veteran. And many of them had memories that came back later in nightmares or in therapy in different ways. And once you remember what happened to you, you can deal with it and heal, which is what happened for me. So at age 37, I remembered abuse by my parents and by other church members. My parents were church leaders, by other church leaders, and by other people, some of whom I'll never know who they were, because I just knew them coming to the house and raping me. So I decided, because some people do discount the way I remembered because I don't have continuous memory of it. And they say my memories aren't true. So I decided to make a film about that. And the name of the film is Am I Crazy? My Journey to Determine If My Memories Are True. In a documentary, you ask a question, and I thought, what better way to really question than to do it on camera, and do it with my initial interviews were with people who don't believe that recovered memories are valid, that any recovered memories are valid, which is interesting. They even discount Vietnam veterans. And so any recovered memories. We also know from Holocaust survivors that some Holocaust survivors have blanked out much of the time they were in the camps. But when they say that, we don't say, well, you were probably treated well. We know enough concentration camps to know it was a horrendous experience, and that is why they don't have every memory. And that's why I didn't have the memory. It was just not safe for me to tell. So I'm
sorry to cut you off, but I just wanted to really, really highlight that, because what you're saying is I believe is going to really set somebody free. What you're saying right now, because it is so very true, and it happens all the time. And just as you just described, it's not just with sexual trauma survivors, but it is, with any type of trauma. That our brains are so sophisticated, and the divine has really created us in such a way to where we are able to unknowingly, be able to protect ourselves from the trauma, from the actual trauma. And then it's not until we maybe feel safe and we're in maybe a different environment or something like that, where those memories do come flooding back. What was that experience like for you when you just, all of a sudden just kind of had this knowing? What was that like?
The first thing that happened related to it, well, really, the first thing that happened is I just started getting more well. I started reading books on codependency. I just started recognizing that I don't have to be driven all the time. I don't have to be afraid all the time. I can relax.
Hmm.
I started trying out for plays. I was in Toastmasters. I did speeches. I just started relaxing in my life. And then that was when my aunt came forward and felt safe enough to tell my father and my mother that she had remembered abuse by her by a grandparent, and
Hmm.
they just totally discounted her and said, "We just think she's crazy and we're never going to see her again." That seemed like a really odd response, considering that my mother and my aunt had been roommates in college, and this is my father's sister, and they're just never going to see her again. So I met with my aunt. She told me not that I had been abused, but that I had witnessed other children being abused. And I knew what she was saying was true. I knew it from the
Hmm.
moment she said it. That was horrible for me. I mean, just to
Hmm.
know that my childhood was so
Hmm.
different than I had thought it was, because I would have said I'd never, I that I did I have always remembered my brothers being beaten by my father, but I hadn't remembered that sort of child abuse,
Hmm.
witnessing it, or I would have said I'd never been abused as a child. So I was in counseling at the time, but it was for marriage problems with my ex-husband. The therapist I went to, I just continued to see related to this, and she did hypnosis. She was actually an excellent hypnotist. My ex-husband went with me the first thing that happened is she just said, write down anything you remember from childhood, no matter how benign. I mean, just absolutely anything. So I'd write down like what my favorite kind of ice cream was as a kid or something like that. Just,
Hmm.
and so I was filling journal with that. And then one time I was journaling, I was in my living room on my couch, and I looked across at the wall, and I saw it was like this video of a man's hand grabbing a dog. It was like I was seeing a video projected onto the wall. And that was my
Hmm.
first memory. It was just that
Okay.
piece of it. But
Okay.
I had the sense there was something violent about it, or something, violence was being perpetrated against that animal. So
Okay.
I went into hypnosis, and the first time I had my ex-husband come so that I could be sure she wasn't doing anything to lead me or whatever. And it was just this
Right. That was
mild
smart.
relaxation. It wasn't, my ex-husband and I both said, yeah, that's fine, And so then from then on, I went alone. So my husband didn't take off work, my ex-husband, and I just brought a audio recording, tape recorder with me. So I have
Okay.
all those tapes, and I transcribed them when I was doing the film. She didn't leave me at all. She was an excellent hypnotherapist.
Hmm.
And I've used the tapes in my film. So
Awesome.
as you saw, um,
Hmm.
and then the memories did come quickly under hypnosis. I had 5 hypnosis sessions, and after that, the memories came without hypnosis. I still occasionally will remember a piece of something, or maybe even a full memory. But I can do it so much more calmly now. I don't need to do it
Hmm.
at a therapist office. I have had EMDR later in my therapy, and uh, some memories came with that, but most of my memories have been when I've been usually in my own home.
Hmm.
And the
And
one
so now this is something that, especially since the film, since the film that has been somewhat controversial between you and family members and things like that. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I do have family members who say that my memories aren't true and they call me crazy. I also, though, have four cousins and an aunt. Well, the aunt I mentioned,
Hmm.
plus, is it? Yeah, four cousins with similar memories. So there's six of us with similar
Okay.
memories. We didn't all go to the same therapist. One of my cousins was in Canada. One was clear across the United States from me. I Yeah, we were dispersed different places and went to different therapists.
Hmm.
Um, and and like I say, most memories came not in therapy. So
Hmm.
it's a hard thing. That was a hard thing for me even to discount when I'd go, well, maybe my memories aren't right, but then I'd be, why do my cousins, why do all these other people have these memories?
They're having that
And
same.
I even remember something and then like kind of fact check with them. And I'd say like,
Hmm.
I don't think this is the same memory you had because you said it was so horrible. And I had thought it was physically horrible, but it was a really disgusting type of sexual abuse. And so I can
Hmm.
see why the cousin said it was horrible, but it wasn't, when she said that, what I envisioned was different than what in fact happened.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. One of my memories I tell about how exactly I got the memory in that essay, the Black Lives Matter essay,
Hmm.
and
That
it.
was a good read, Mary.
Thank
That was
you.
a that was a really good read. I was like glued.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that with me. I'm sorry
Yes.
to interrupt. Go
Oh no, that's great. Thank you. And it's on my
ahead.
website if anyone wants to see it,
Yeah.
maryknightproductions.com. So under essays, but I yeah, I tell about how it was like God just so took care of me as I remembered this horrendous thing. God prepared me by it was as though God sang a love song to me, and then I was ready to remember something really horrendous. Um, so God's been good to me all the way through. I
Hmm.
I think God has given me the memories when I could handle them, and when my life was stable in other ways financially, when I was definitely financially independent from my parents who were multimillionaires, um, which I haven't been, but I have plenty. I have enough money.
Hmm.
I have a good life. So um, yeah, I being a mother, being a good mother is what I've always wanted to do since I was a little girl, and
Hmm.
certainly I've tried to do that. Um,
Hmm.
and that was really why I had hypnosis, because I needed to know which relatives to trust and which ones to distrust right
Mm.
away, so that I could
Gotcha.
protect my sons from anyone who was not trustworthy.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Now your story was really it was really amazing to me because of the spiritual component. I think I shared with you earlier that that is something that we do have in common, being that our parents were very active in the church.
Yes.
Um, and so that's what kind of stood out to me from your story, is that it wasn't just that it was that the sexual assault happened, but it there was a spiritual component that was kind of tied to that for you. Can you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, I was taken to church 3 times a week. I was
Hmm.
sexually abused along with my cousins in a classroom, Sunday school classroom. Um, and I was sexually abused other times in Sunday school classrooms, because our grandparents and parents had keys to the church. Um, and child pornography that includes religious symbols sells for more money.
Mm.
I mean, you can imagine, but that's so bizarre. But so I think that may be one reason they wanted it on church property.
Mhm.
And um, and though God revealed herself to me when I was 6 years old, 5 or 6 years
Mhm.
old. I had just been raped by a group of men, prostituted. I saw a money exchange hand. I saw men hand money to my mother. And then I was just really physically very hurt. And I remember wishing I was dead. Oh, I really wished I was dead. And I was so physically hurt. One of the men who had raped me, so a man who had just raped a child, was concerned about me, really thought I was going to die, and told my dad, you went too far. And my dad's like, oh, she's mine. Like I was my dad's property, is what my dad was saying.
Mhm.
Then I looked up and I saw this light from heaven, or maybe it was just the sun moving between the clouds. But I believe it was God showing me
Mhm.
himself, herself, just in the bright light. And I just
Mhm.
felt so loved.
Mhm.
I have gone back to that, knowing how loved I am by God has gotten me through. I consider God my only father I've ever had, because the father
Mhm.
I had was not a father.
Mhm.
And I feel really fortunate to have God as my dad.
Mhm. And so how has this shaped your relationship with your parents? Our parents are supposed to be the people that take care of us. They're supposed to be the ones that nurture us and protect us and guide us. And it doesn't sound like that was necessarily your story. So how do you what space does your parents hold in your heart at this point today?
And that's what my films are about. My first film, Am I Crazy? My Journey to Determine If My Memories Are True, really goes into how in finality I have dealt with my father after his death, but I'm talking to him at the grave and
Hmm.
basically saying, you were never a father to me, God's my only father. And with my
Hmm.
mother, my documentary, upcoming documentary, which should be out next week here, Mothers and Molestation, a film about child abuse, tells my
Hmm.
ending with my mom. Because even after that film was over, I knew I needed to do more around my mom. And I went to see her at her grave at Mother's Day um, in 2019.
Okay.
Or was it 2000? Yeah, in 2019. And
Hmm.
um, my ending with her is that I'm my own mother. I'm such a good mother. I'm so good at nurturing. And so
Hmm.
God's let me realize I'm the only mother I've ever had. I was really quite young when I was more nurturing than my mother. I
Hmm.
would look after my younger siblings, and I, yeah, they, yeah, and so that's what I do for myself. I nurture myself.
Hmm. And then with all of this, I have to ask the question because of the church and the spiritual kind of component that's there. How has your childhood trauma, how has that now affected your relationship with God? It sounds like it's one
Oh,
in great standings.
oh yeah. God and I have no problem. I feel
Mhm.
I feel like God's proud of me. I notice when I've stood up, or like, a podcast like this, or other times I'm standing up for what's true and good. I just think I just think of God commending me, um, and so I do believe in afterlife. I'm not at all concerned with being judged because God tells me when I do what's right and when I do what's wrong now. And I
Mm-hmm.
just depend on God for guidance,
Mm-hmm.
and for nurturing and for someone to talk to. My communication with God is very constant and very positive.
Was there ever a time where there was a disconnect between you and God? Were you ever angry with God?
I was angry at God, but I didn't consider that a disconnect. I think
Okay.
God has no problem with our anger. And I
Mm.
felt like that was a real spiritual thing for me to do, to be angry at God.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like uh, I believe God respects our courage when we are angry at him, her. I believe God allows us to have, I believe God doesn't require us to have only one concept of him, her, or they.
Mm-hmm.
And I think of God in different ways at different times. But yeah, I've been very angry at God. I was
Mm-hmm.
very angry I didn't have the memory sooner, because I would have liked to have them before I ever became a mom, because I
Mm-hmm.
believe I'm a better mom now,
Mm-hmm.
that I've dealt with things. But I just, I've had to accept I just wasn't ready.
Yeah.
Um, and I think anger is good. I think anger helps us to come to our truths, our inner truths. When we have the courage to be angry, then we can
Mm-hmm.
find out what's underneath that. And yeah, I just really believe God condones anger that is that lives in truth. Not being
Yeah.
angry at
I
the wrong person, but yeah, and anger at God, I think has helped me to come to a real solid relationship with God.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I would have to agree with you. I believe that if the anger is well placed, that it can be something that actually moves you forward. Um, in whatever it is that you're looking to discover. So, who is God to you today? Who is God to you today?
Oh, well, my dad, my father, my friend, sometimes
Mm-hmm.
my mother. Sometimes I get mothering from God. My guide, um, and kind of, I have a sense of being really, I think, kind of like a coworker too. There's that sense of being
Mm-hmm.
like we what I want and what God wants are the same. God, I believe, has given me. I'm doing my life's work. I'm doing what
Mm-hmm.
God wants me to do, and um, so that's a type of closeness too. I want to help
Mm-hmm.
as many survivors of childhood abuse as I can in my lifetime, and I want to protect as many children as I can from abuse,
Yes. Yes.
and which is God's will. I mean, so yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think I
And
have
and
several.
those that we can't. I'm sorry. Say that again.
I think I have several different relationships with God, because
Mm-hmm.
I mean God's so complex. I believe that.
Yes. Very, very complex, and it's almost annoying to me when God is kind of placed, in a box. Um, because you're absolutely right. God is absolutely very, very complex. Okay, so because of what has happened to you, and I'm sure you and I maybe share a similar experience here. I I know that because of my childhood trauma, relationships were always very challenging for me. It was always very challenging for me to trust It was always challenging for me to just feel safe. Communication was always an issue. Again, typically kind of going back to the trust. Um, how have you kind of navigated yourself with with regards to having a healthy relationship after being sexually
I think my relationships with girlfriends from the time I was pretty young has just helped me my whole life. Or
assaulted?
like non-romantic relationships have been really helpful to
Hmm.
me. And there was a time during my first marriage when my ex-husband complained about my friendships, and I tried not having friends or letting him choose my friends as a way to please him. That was a real
Hmm.
dismal time in my life, the last few years of my first marriage. And then when I got out of that relationship, I went to domestic violence groups for women. And in fact, I've made a film that is sometimes shown at domestic violence groups for women. So it's like my thank you to
Gotcha.
the help I got at that time.
Mhm.
Um, but um, but for most of my life, I've just had good relationships, good non-romantic relationships. But I didn't have good relationships with the men I dated. I didn't date much in high school. My first marriage lasted over 20 years and was verbally abusive. My
Mhm.
um, and I It wasn't until I met my husband um, in 2009 that
Mhm.
that was my first really good relationship with a man. Um,
Mhm.
I'd had a couple of non-romantic relationships with men that were good, but other than
Mhm.
that, and we have a good relationship. Like all
Mhm.
relationships, we have to work at it sometimes. We don't see
Mhm.
everything eye to eye, but we have a very good relationship. He cherishes me. I
That's
wrote down the
beautiful.
things I wanted in a marriage soon after my divorce. And one of the things was I wanted for someone to cherish me, and he does. He really,
Mhm.
kind of adores me. Um, and um, he was the things on the list. I wanted someone very honest. He's so honest, I get frustrated because he won't drive even 2 miles over the speed limit. So,
Mhm.
but he's definitely very honest,
Mhm.
and so he was the things that I wanted. And so I do again want to say recovery is possible and dreams come true, and mine has. We enjoy doing the fostering together, and
Mhm.
we live in a house that I love, not a fancy house, but I love my view. I can see, not today, but some days I can see the mountains in Canada from where I live because I live in far north Washington State. So I do have
Mhm.
really good life now, and my health has gotten much better too, which I talk about that
Awesome.
in one of my documentaries. But yeah, I used to have fibromyalgia, and I was in a
Mhm.
lot of pain. And I was always in pain from the time I was a child. So I don't know when it went from pain from the physical abuse and torture and when it went into chronic pain.
Mhm.
But I was I was like 31, and I was holding one of my sons, my infant son. I was in this women's group, and we were talking about all kinds of personal things like moms do shortly after they have childbirth. And I said, "Well, aren't you in pain?" I just thought everyone was in pain in some part of their body every day. That was
Mhm.
when I learned it was not usual for me to have pain all the time. And so it was a long journey getting well. I have a long list on my website of all the things that have helped me.
Mhm.
Um, and the things I still do, yoga, I still take antidepressants, I hike, I eat healthy, and just meditation. So many different things,
Mhm.
psychotherapy that help me to have the good life I have now.
What would, if for those who are listening, if you were to suggest one thing that a listener could do today to kind of kickstart the healing process, what would that one thing be for you? I know that's hard to narrow
Oh,
down,
it's so hard to do just one
huh?
thing. I'm trying to think when I first started. What did I start with? Because, I would say meditation and just clearing your mind, but I couldn't do it at first.
Mm.
I couldn't. And I got frustrated because I just tried to breathe like, 5 breaths and not think of other things. And I couldn't even do one breath. So I think the thing I would recommend is be gentle with yourself.
Ooh,
Don't expect too much of yourself. And one
I
thing
like that.
that I did early on, and even before I regained my memories, I started doing is doing less. Like, don't do
Mm.
extra volunteer work. Well, there was a time when I was remembering things and I felt so overwhelmed, I quit recycling. Now, the
Hmm.
world didn't come to an end because I quit recycling for a while. And if there's something you can do, even if it's a really good thing, but you can stop doing, so you give yourself just a little bit more nurturing, do it.
Mm.
Compliment yourself. Do something nice for yourself. That would
Mm.
be the first thing.
I love that. I love that. To just do a little less.
Yeah.
I think that that is really profound because so many times in speaking with clients, I find that they feel the need to just do, and what I talk about in sessions is if we can do just as you're saying now and just kind of pull back from some things and allow ourselves just some space to be just sitting in that solitude, not feeling the need to be busy. Because when we're trying to be busy in a lot of situations, we're trying to fill the space so that we don't feel the hurt.
Right.
We're filling the space so we don't have to feel the hurt. And so I talk to clients quite a bit actually about just pulling away from things and just allowing yourself to just be and sit in that solitude. One of the primary things that I use and still use, and what I started with was journaling. And that journaling, man, oh man, oh man, it has a way of making you very present,
Yes.
you know, uh, and very, very present of your thoughts and what your true emotions are. Um, and yeah, and there were so many different moments where I would look and be like, oh my gosh, do I really feel that way? I guess that's really what I really feel. I guess that's really what I really think. And it just brings all of those things to the surface. And it's once we bring those things to the surface that we, of course, are able to really deal with it. So journaling was really, really, it was the game changer, I would have to say for me, especially in the beginning. And like I said, I still incorporate journaling into my life on a regular basis because, especially if I'm dealing with something that is particularly challenging, that journaling is really, really helpful. This has really been
Oh, yeah.
good.
This is great. Yeah.
This is really, really good, Mary. And so, talk to the viewers about the film and how they can get in contact with you and all of the wonderful things that you're
Okay. I have a website,
doing.
www.maryknightproductions.com. My last name is spelled like knight in shining armor, Knight. So maryknightproductions.com. Or you can email me at maryknighthappy@yahoo.com. And any viewers who just want to talk to me, I don't charge for, I'm willing to have one free phone call with you. And it's not in any way a business related thing. I just am glad to talk to any survivors. I have on my website um, a link to Vimeo on demand um, for my film, Am I Crazy? My Journey to Determine If My Memories Are True. In that film, I interviewed some famous people. I interviewed some famous people who are famous because they say memories like mine don't exist. I also interviewed Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, very well-known neuroscientist, author of The Body Keeps the Score. And he was really interesting to interview. So you'll see him in both of my documentaries. And
That's a very popular book too
yes,
for survivors. Like, yeah,
yes,
it's
it
like
is.
the go-to. Yeah.
It is. It is. I was so thrilled when he said yes to the interview. Uh, and um, and so, but also survivors who can't afford to pay for the film. It costs $10, but survivors who can't afford to pay for it, just email me and I'll give you a promo code so you can watch it free. Um, that's why I made it. I made it for you. I made it for you for survivors. And for professionals who work with survivors. A lot of professionals who work with survivors have just, some of them just show it to all their clients. And then I am coming out with a new film, Mothers and Molestation, a film about child abuse, next year. So if you email me and get on my email list, that's the best way to know when that's coming out. I also did a film, One Man's Anger, One Woman's Love, which is about my son being different than his father, who's a verbal abuser. It's 15 minutes long. It's actually an uplifting film about domestic violence. It really is. It's a good one to watch. And I also made a film, my fun film, which is a PG-13 romantic comedy about twin sisters. And anyway, it's on there too, Sister Mary's Angel. It's under previous films. And my essay is on there, very dark. And yeah, it's a Black Lives Matter essay. As well as I also have a page, How I Healed, which lists all the different things that have helped me.
That was probably one of my favorite parts,
Oh,
just
cool.
because that really is kind of my thing. You know, it's I guess you could say it's become kind of synonymous with who people have come to know me to be. You know, just loving and really, really just have fallen in love with people's healing journey and loving being able to share spaces like this with people like you who are so open to be able to talk about the pain, but also talk about the healing journey. That is so incredibly important. Well, Mary, I don't want to take up too much of your time today, but this has just been absolutely wonderful. I thank you so very much for being willing to sit with me and hold this space with me, to be able to encourage and uplift and inspire someone who's watching today to, if they haven't started the healing process, to this is probably where it will start for them by viewing this video right now. So I thank you again. If you are wanting to get a hold of Mary, again, Mary, can you say your email again? I'm sorry.
Mary Knight Happy at yahoo.com. And that's Mary, Mary, and then Knight, Knight, happy, like the opposite of sad, at yahoo.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mary. And if you are wanting to get a hold of me, Dr. Lori with Still Whole Wellness, of course, you can reach me on our YouTube channel. You can also reach me via email at stillwholewellness@gmail.com. And you can also reach out to me on our website at Still Whole Wellness, www.stillwholewellness.com. I thank you guys so much for sitting with us today and watching this video. Please feel free to share it and comment on it and even like it. Okay. And we thank you guys so much, and we'll see you on the next video.
Thank
Thank you.
you, Lori.
Peace and blessings.
Thank you.